in the rock, gotta feed God's children, honey in the rock. Oh, honey in the rock, honey in the rock, gotta feed God's children, feed every child of God.
Welcome to this online worship service of the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Shelter Rock. I'm Reverend Jaye Brooks. I minister to this congregation along with Reverend Jennifer Brower and the Reverend Dr. Natalie Fenimore. Today, our worship service is based on the stories and songs of the people of St. John's Island, South Carolina. Their songs and stories were chronicled by Guy and Candie Carawan in the 1960s and then again in the 80s. About 2 months ago, music director Stephen Michael Smith and I discovered this book that the Carawans had put together. It's called Ain't I Got a Right to the Tree of Life. These songs and stories are precious. They are the living embodiment of community. We were so touched by the songs and the history behind them that we wanted to share those with our choir and congregation. It's hard to explain how meaningful this is, and I know that Stephen and I have both had the experience of being in a workshop with the amazing singer and songwriter Ysaye Barnwell, who taught us some of these songs, some of the kinds of songs that the people of John's Island sing. Their songs go back to the Gullah culture and the history of slaves who were brought to the Carolinas, to the southern east coast of America, and to the Sea Islands along the east coast. These songs and the special way of singing, which is often called shouting, were incredibly important to maintaining a sense of community among the people of the islands. We're really fortunate to have the history preserved in these written down songs and stories. Stephen has a little more to tell you.
I first became acquainted with the traditions of music of the people who inhabited the islands along the southeast coast of the United States, sometimes known as the Georgia Sea Islands, in the 1990s when I spent some time in Brunswick, Georgia. What immediately hit me was how isolated these islands are. But it was the very isolation that allowed for the preservation of their culture. And at the center of their culture was music. On John's Island, the music was shouted rather than sung. And if you think about shouting, you realize it takes one's whole body to shout. And in addition to that, they shouted, quote unquote, with their hands and with their feet. The basic form of much of their music was call and response. A single singer would sing a line, and then the community would respond. And we have several examples of that today. Also, I think of great interest is that the roots of some of the music for the civil rights movement started on John's Island. Today we will hear I Will Overcome, which eventually became We Shall Overcome.
For more than a year now, we've been separate from one another, isolated. And one of the most important things we've learned during this time is that we must have and feel the bonds of community. The people of St. John's Island know what it's like to experience hardship. The songs that they and their ancestors sang are songs that speak to our hearts today. We need to find that sense that we are a vocal community, that we sing and we speak and we reach out to find the honey in the rock and share it with the world.
Satan met and I so glad he missed the soul that he thought he had. Satan so mad and I so glad, 'cause he missed the soul that he thought he had. Honey in the rock, gotta feed God's children. Honey in the rock. Honey in the rock. Honey in the rock, gotta feed God's children. Feed every child of God.
The words of Maya Angelou. We, unaccustomed to courage, exiles from delight, live coiled in shells of loneliness until love leaves its high holy temple and comes into our sight to liberate us into life. As we gather in community, may the songs and stories we share evoke that love that liberates us into life and causes us to name our community beloved. Each Sunday, we light the chalice of our religious heritage. We do this for our ancestors who taught us out of their various religious traditions and by their actions for justice and hope. We do this for our children who are learning the traditions we teach and who learn more from our actions than our words. We do this for ourselves to remind us of who we are and who we seek to become. This flame symbolizes the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. Unitarian Universalist minister Mark Morrison Reed said that the central task of the religious community is to unveil the bonds that bind each to all. There is a connectedness, a relationship discovered amid the particulars of our own lives and the lives of others. Once felt, it inspires us to act for justice. The bonds that bind each to all. Most Sundays since the start of the pandemic, we've invited contributions to a special collection to help people most affected by the losses of COVID-19. People who are hungry, people who need job training. Once again, we offer everyone with resources the opportunity to help those who have less. Donations made today and through the remainder of February will go to Island Harvest, which has food pantries across Long Island. The pandemic has gone on so long, and the need is greater than ever. There are 3 ways to contribute: by sending a text, by using the donate link on our website, and be sure to choose special collection, or by using PayPal. One of the ways we feel the bonds that bind each to all is to feed the children. This is community. This is how we find honey in the rock.
Honey in the rock, gotta feed God's children. Honey in the rock. Honey in the rock. Honey in the rock, gotta feed God's children. Feed every child of God.
Our Universalist heritage will not let me go. I still believe as deeply as I believe anything that each and every one of us is a child of God. The Spirit of life moves even in those who would send us backward towards a lost Eden of prejudice and rigid notions of what is acceptable that crippled so many and took advantage of most. It will take more than sound bites to point us towards the beloved community. There is a belief in the African American tradition, a statement of faith that says we can find a way out of no way. I hope you find inspiration to wake and to rise so that we can support one another in living as if love were real, even in these divided days, and by our living make it so.
Building beloved community sometimes means finding a way out of no way. For the people of St. John's Island, finding a way out of no way was first and foremost to create community. Their forebears were settled on the island as slaves to work the soil of the plantations. When Guy and Candie Carawan first interviewed the islanders in the 1960s, slavery was recent memory when measured in human lifetimes. The yearning for inspiration to wake and to rise, to live as if love were real, is a deep human need.
These are the words of Mrs. Betty Pinckney, who was born in 1878. My grandmother was Hannah Seabrook. She raised me up and told me a lot about rebel times. Old Hannah Seabrook was a cooker and a washer. Her first husband got sold. Yes, sir. They sell my father's daddy. Sell him for money. When my father was coming up, he used to have to see what old master wanted him to do. He was just a boy and couldn't do none of that heavy work. So the old master would have him shine his shoes. One day he found some finger marks on them and knocked my daddy down the stairs. When the war came, my daddy was just a young boy. My daddy just up and ran off with the Yankees. He followed the Yankees until peace was declared. My grandma didn't see him for 4 years.
Ask the watchman how long.
How long, watching how long?
Oh, we don't know how long.
How long, watching how long?
Oh, ask my brother how long.
How long, brother, how long?
Oh, all my neighbors how long.
How long, neighbors, how long?
Oh, in 64 how long.
How long, watching how long?
Oh, before the roll call.
How long, watching how long?
Oh, ask my daughter how long. How long, daughter, how long? Oh, just a few more risings. How long, daughter, how long? Oh, ask my preacher how long. How long, preacher, how long? Oh, ask my leader how long. How long, leader, how long? Oh, well, ask my neighbors how long. How long, neighbor, how long? Oh, Brother Jenkins, how long? How long, brother, how long? Oh, soon it will be over. How long, watchman, how long? Oh, how long, how long? How long, watchman, how long? Oh, watchman, how long? How long, watchman, how long? Oh, how long, watchman, how long? How long, watchman, how long? Oh, you know how long, how long? How long, watchman, how long? Oh, how long, how long? How long, watchman, how long? Oh, ask my friend how long? How long, friend, how long? Oh, how long, watchman, how long? How long, watchman, how long?
How long? How long? Surely this is the question that the entire world has been asking now for nearly a year. It's a question that has a different meaning for us today than it did 60 years ago on St. John's Island, yet it's one that goes to the heart of the human need to be held in community, to be alone no more, to end the isolation, to be together, to sing together.
These are the words of Mrs. Belle Green, an older resident of St. John's Island, when she was interviewed in the 1960s. Sometimes I stand here in the nighttime, ain't but me in one little room to sing. Then I study, my mind run across, and he run on the old man. I just stop, sit down, and me heart get full. The other day I couldn't eat no supper. Me heart fill, and I feel full up the whole afternoon. Couldn't do nothing. I just prayed and make my voice come back. Give me my voice back as I does been, one time before I died.
Lay down, body, lay down a little while. Lay down, body, lay down a little while. Oh, my body now, lay down a little while. Oh, body, in a little while. Down in the graveyard, down a little while. Down in the graveyard, lay down a little while. I know you're tired, down a little while. I know you're tired, lay down a little while. Just keep a rolling, lay down a little while. Just keep a rolling, lay down a little while. Rocky was my road, lay down a little while. Rocky was my road, lay down a little while. Body, aren't you tired? Lay down a
the sadness that comes from being weary, the exhaustion that begs to lie down and maybe not get up, calls to most of us from time to time. It's one of the themes from the songs on St. John's Island, and it calls to my heart and my spirit. But the songs of community do more than express sorrow or loneliness or suffering. Songs also have a way to build us up again. On St. John's Island in Moving Star Hall, the people didn't just sing the sad songs of weariness. They found in community a reason to sing victory songs, to sing and clap, shout and stomp, to turn challenges into triumph through the medium of music. Our choir members, hearing this music for the first time, resonated with it.
I feel energized by the spirit of today's music. I can't sit still. I have to move. I have to clap, even stomp and dance.
When I am in pain or despair, I turn to these songs. I hear the call of the rhythm. My body moves to the beat. I feel the energy pumping into me. I hear the call of the voice. Relief is ahead. Hallelujah.
Mr. Esau Jenkins grew up in a family that had lived on John's Island for many generations. He became influential in the civil rights movement on the island and in the South. He was known for his fierce attachment to his Gullah culture and to the island people. Here's how Mr. Esau Jenkins, in his own words, described the singing at Moving Star Hall. Just to hear these songs reminds us of our hardship. Those songs are the ones that made them happy, that made them go through those hard days. The days when they didn't have a place to live of their own, didn't have a piece of land of their own, and were living on a plantation. These people are hard-pressed people, and they are optimistic enough to believe that there are better days coming. When they get into these religious shouts, they feel so happy until that's all they can do but shout. The motions go into the hands and into the feet, and they start clapping, and you can't keep them sitting, not when they start clapping, brother. They feel so happy till they've got to shout. They're trying to satisfy themselves, satisfy their soul. They're sometimes sad, but they're trying to get rid of that. If you could come and see how they look when they're singing and shouting, you can see they're singing for a better day, shouting for a better day.
Won't you lead me to the rock, higher and high, higher and high, higher and high. Lead me to the rock, higher and high, shelter in the time of storm. Won't you lead me to the rock, higher and high, higher and high, higher and high, lead me to the rock, higher and high, shelter in the time of storm. Oh, my mother is a rock, higher and high, higher and high, higher and high. My mother is a rock, higher and high, shelter in the time of storm. Won't you lead me to the rock, higher and high, higher and high, higher and high. Lead me to the rock, higher and high, shelter in the time of storm. Oh, is a rock, higher and high, higher and high, higher and high. King Jesus is a rock, higher and high, shelter in the time of storm. Won't you lead me to the rock, higher and high, higher and high, higher and high. Lead me to the rock, higher and high, shelter in the time of storm. Oh, my God is a rock, higher and high, higher and high, higher and high. My God is a rock, higher and high, shelter in the time of storm. Won't you lead me to the rock, higher and high, higher and high, higher and high. Lead me to the rock, higher and high, shelter in the time of storm.
Beginning in 1948, Ysaye Jenkins began the effort to bring better education to St. John's Island. And although he had left school in the 4th grade, at age 14 he started to ask for help to improve his reading and math skills. He didn't finish high school until after he was an adult, after he'd been married. So Ysaye valued education, and he also treasured his Gullah heritage. Mrs. Bernice Robinson said that Ysaye, who was an activist for the people of St. John's Island, was sometimes criticized for the way he talked, but everybody listens when Ysaye talks in his same Gullah language. Ysaye encouraged adults to register to vote, and because of the literacy test required for voter registration, he began teaching adults to read so they could pass the literacy test. At first, he gave informal lessons on the bus he drove between Johns Island and Charleston. During the 1950s, these adult learning programs spread and became known as citizenship schools. The training sessions developed on Johns Island became the curriculum that went all across the South.
These are the words of Mrs. Septimer Clark, who knew Ysaye Jenkins from when he was 14 years old and came to her school to learn how to read. Mrs. Clark's autobiography, published in 1986, is called Ready from Within, Septimer Clark and the Civil Rights Movement. These are her words. The people who left these training sessions went home to teach and to work in voter registration drives. They went home and they didn't take it anymore. They started their own citizenship classes, discussing the problems in their own towns. How come the pavement stops where the black section begins? Asking questions like that, and then knowing who to go to talk about that, or where to protest it. One time, I heard Andy Young say that the citizenship schools were the base on which the whole civil rights movement was built. And that's probably very much true. It's true because the citizenship schools made people aware of the political situation in their area. We recruited the wise leaders of their communities, like Fannie Lou Hamer in Mississippi. Hosea Williams started out as a citizenship school supervisor. The citizenship school classes formed the grassroots basis of new statewide political organizations in South Carolina, Georgia, and Mississippi. from one end of the South to the other. If you look at the black elected officials and the political leaders, you find people who had their first involvement in the training program of the Citizenship School.
Ain't we got a right to the tree of life? This idea, the tree of life, as something that every human being has a right to participate in, that every human being from their birth is part of the tree of life. A limb on the tree, a twig on the branch, a leaf on the twig. All of us hope to build a better world. It's one of the reasons we are Unitarian Universalists. And we see this hope and this longing in the songs of the people of St. John's Island. We see it in our own lives and in the songs we sing and in the stories we tell. We are human. We need community. And we must remember the power of song and the power of love to bring us together into community, to support us when we need support, and to give us courage and energy to go out and make a difference in the world.
Mrs. Alice Wine was one of the first women Esau Jenkins taught to read. In the early days, when Esau was still driving the bus between St. John's Island and Charleston. She was one of the first to become a registered voter. Years later, here's what she says. I still vote. The older people sang, I shall overcome, because they had a hard time. They had to row boat to go to the city to carry their peas and corn and potatoes, rice and things. They had a hard time living and raising their children. Them people had to work with their children on their back. Those old-time foreparents were something else, I tell ya. And one of those days, they were able to overcome. They were able to buy the land.
I want to be like him. I want to be like him. I will be like him someday. Honey, down in my heart, Lord, I do believe. Oh, I'll overcome someday. Oh, I will sing a song. I will sing a song. Oh, I want to sing a song someday. Down in my heart, Lord, I do believe. Oh, I want to sing a song someday. Oh, I do believe. Oh, I do believe. Yes, I do believe someday. Down in my heart, I do believe. Oh, I will overcome someday. Oh, I want to walk like him. I want to walk like him. Oh, I want to walk like him someday. Down in my heart, oh, I do believe. Oh, I want to walk like him someday. Oh, I will overcome. I will overcome. I will overcome someday. Hey, down in my heart.
In this beloved community, we sing songs and tell stories that create a shared experience, an experience that helps us know the bonds that bind each to all. May this community always be open to welcome fully those of us who have found our way here in all the strength and frailty of our authentic humanity. And may the we be an ever-expanding, ever-widening circle that includes all who seek, all who yearn, and all who love. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into all the world.
Remember, hush, little baby, don't you cry. You know your mother was born to die. Oh, remember, hush, little baby, don't you cry. You know your mother was born to die. Honey in the rock, gotta feed God's children. Honey in the rock. Honey in the rock. Honey in the rock, gotta feed God's children. Feed every child of God. Oh, children, one of these mornings I was walking along. I saw the grapes was a-hanging down. Lord, I picked a bunch and I sucked the juice. It's the sweetest grape that I ever tasted. Oh, honey in the rock, gotta feed God's children. Honey in the rock. Oh, honey in the rock. Honey in the rock, gotta feed God's children. Feed every child